Jude, have you noticed recently that a lot of your clients are speaking to you about grief and loss? And sometimes they don't even know that that's the process that they're going through. I mean, with grief, there's that obvious process, isn't there, when you lose somebody that means everything to you and you've lost that person. But there's a lot more subtle types of grief as well. Are you finding that?
Yeah, sometimes it can take clients quite a while to realise that they are experiencing a real sense of loss. Funnily enough, I was coaching someone recently, and they had been promoted, but what they were actually experiencing was not the joys of that and the challenges, of course, but actually the loss of camaraderie from having risen through the ranks. They were being kind of excluded from that because of their new role, so they'd lost their social connections, that sense of camaraderie, and he was really struggling, and he felt guilty. He was feeling very guilty that he was not embracing his new life, and nobody could understand it around him. But I think it was more helpful when he saw it through the prism of a kind of grief that he was experiencing. Yeah, there's all sorts of subtle ones and not so subtle ones. I mean, certainly lots of clients at the moment, particularly those with long COVID, who are losing, suddenly loss of health, loss of connections, having to live, loss of social life. Yeah, it's tough out there. It's a lot of loss and grief. Yeah, I agree with you.
And like you're saying, a lot of it is that more subtle thing that you don't even think about as being grief and loss. There are a lot of theories about all of these different stages of grief and the different things that we go through. And we just see it as this kind of multi-layered thing. It's like a roller coaster of emotions where you're just on this kind of ride, and 1 minute you're sad and the next minute you're angry, and then you're just frustrated, and then there's guilt, and then there's all of these other emotions that are just mixed into that. And it's just layer upon layer upon layer of different feelings and different emotions.
I think that's right, Helen. This sense of a cycle of grief and going through stages, oftentimes our clients just don't experiencing like that, and that's something that then leads them to doubt themselves and make them feel bad about themselves when they're already feeling really bad. And the other thing is, where we talk about grief as being a healthy thing to go through, for many of our clients it's the scariest thing they've ever experienced. They've never felt this level of intensity and depths of unhappiness and despair, and people ramming it down their throats that actually this is good for you and you're going through, that's a bit of a paradox, isn't it? When you're feeling really disconnected from the world, and it's like you're in some kind of strange bubble. Yeah.
And actually, you saying about people, that's probably one of the unhelpful things about grief, is other people either judging and criticizing how you're grieving and what you should be feeling and how they would do it and things like that. Or it's those people that are trying to tell you that there are gifts in loss when you're not ready to hear that. Other people can just not help you. And the other thing as well is people have this kind of very stoic way about them, where they try and suppress the feelings and just get on as if nothing's happened. And again, that's not helpful, because you're not processing those emotions in order to move through it.
Yeah, and I think that's a key thing, is when people start to realize that they have permission to have the time to move through what they're moving through. And it's not always about recovering. For some people, you can't recover from what you've experienced. It's more about achieving some kind of peace with the fact that you've changed and the world you're living in has changed, but it's got to be peace at your own pace. As long, of course, as you're not deeply unstuck for a very long time and in a really unhelpful place, and recognizing that there may come a point where you really need to reach out and talk to people who are skilled and experienced with dealing with grief issues, whether that's a professional or somebody outside of your immediate social circle or family circle. but it's that recognizing that you are in a different phase and you need to step up in terms of being kind and compassionate to yourself, definitely.
And I think it's also really important to recognize that this takes time. You know, it does take time to go through it. And like Jude just said, I think that whole idea of being kind and compassionate to yourself is just so key in this. And recognize that it's okay to ask for help if you need it, because that's so important, is to really look after yourself, both physically by making sure you're sleeping and you're eating well and you're looking after your health, but also emotionally, get the support you need. And I think, you know, in time you'll get to a place where maybe if you've lost a person that's very dear to you, you can celebrate their life, you can celebrate having been part of their life. I lost my mum and I still wear a wedding ring, but it's got great emotional connection for me. It reminds me of her, and there's a warmth to it, but I'm ready for that. So, you know, when you're ready for it, look at how you can create a positive memories and feelings towards somebody that you've lost, if that's the case.
I'm smiling because I know this might, every time I go into my polytunnel, my allotment, I use my dad's tools. You know, that's my positive really bond, and there's something really special about that. We find our solace in some strange places, don't we?
We do. So just, I think, if you're feeling that you're going through a grief process, if you've lost something, someone, whatever it is, and you're struggling, get help. You know, you need to be supported through this. So find somebody that can help you.
Thank you.